Hello, everyone. I'm Billy.
And I'm Kamraun. Welcome to the Horse Frog Podcast, home of your two favorite professional digressors and the creators of the Malazan Brotherhood.
Today, we'll be discussing Book 3, Chapter 14 of Memories of Ice, a novel in the Malazan Books of the Fallen. This is part 2 of our coverage of this chapter.
This podcast series is intended to be a companion to reading or listening to the books set in the Malazan universe. It is not a book review, and it is most definitely not a replacement to reading the books. Both Billy and I know
Testify.
this to be the best fantasy story ever written, and want to share our love of the series with you. You got me that time.
Sorry.
That's all right. There's a lot of power behind it. Right.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. It's my turn now, and I'm sitting here laughing at what I'm laughing about. So sorry. Well, it's going to be a hard episode, or at least according to this intro, I'm having a hard time keeping a straight face. We'll be covering the events of the books in a linear fashion. There will be spoilers for those that have not read the books. We'll try not to spoil anything prior to us covering that portion of the respective book. And dude, still, great job.
Thank you. Likewise. A quick warning. Today's episode contains extreme violence and adult topics not suitable for children.
Our show is listener supported, and if you would like to support us, we'd really appreciate that. You can do so by visiting our Patreon link on our website at horsefrogproductions.com. Currently, we're posting ad-free episodes on Patreon weekly.
Also, we'd really like to hear from you. Send any feedback or comments to contact@horsefrogproductions.com. All right, Chapter 14, Part 2. The slaughter of the Kachin Chamal by the Kron Talan I Mas and the Undead A had thrown the Septarch and his forces into disarray, as Bruchalion had predicted. The confusion and the immobility it engendered had added days to Itkovian's preparations for the siege to come. But now the time for preparing had ended, and Itkovian was left with the command of the city's defenses. There would be no Talan I Mas, no Talan A to come to their rescue, Itkovian thought, and no relieving army to arrive with the last grain of the hourglass. Kapustan was on its own. He thought, and so it shall be, fear, anguish, and despair. From his position atop the highest tower on the barracks wall, after Carnidus had left and the stream of messengers began its frenzied flow, he had watched the first concerted movement of enemy troops to the east and southeast, the appearance of siege weapons, Becklights and the more heavily armored Bedeklights marshalling opposite Port Gate, with a mass of Scalandi behind and to either side of them. Knots of Seerdamen shock troops, scurrying bands of Desandi sappers, positioning still more siege weapons, and, waiting in enormous, sprawling encampments along the river and the coast, the seething mass of the Tenniscourie. That seething mass of Tenniscourie must be something to see standing on the walls. The army alone is bad enough.
Yeah, just, man, the effect on the morale is, I cannot imagine how demoralizing this would be on you as a defender. Crud, just being a citizen. You've just got to be horrific to know that this is out there waiting for you.
The only mercy for the citizen at this point is they can't see it. They're not up on the walls.
Yeah, that's true. It's mostly just the soldiers and defenders, all that see this.
Yeah, they'll be feeling it, though, in a minute.
Yep, right.
Yeah. Itkovian had watched the assault on the outside fortification of the Gidrath's East Watch redoubt, already isolated and surrounded by the enemy, had seen the narrow door battered down, the Becklights pushing into the passageway, 3 steps, 2 steps, 1, then a standstill, and moments later a step back, then another, bodies being pulled clear, still more bodies. The Gidrath, the elite guards of the Mass Council, had revealed their discipline and determination. They expelled the intruders, raised yet another barricade in place of the door. The Becklights outside had milled for a time, then they renewed their assault. The battle continued through the afternoon, yet each time that Itkovian pulled his attention away from other events, he saw that the Gidrath still held, taking enemy lives by the score. He thought, twisting that thorn in the Septarch's midst. Finally, near dusk, siege weapons were wheeled about. Huge boulders were hurled against the fortress's walls. The pounding concussions continued as the last of daylight fell away. And there's no surprise there. I wonder how those soldiers felt given the pointless order to stay in the redoubt and get surrounded with no hope of support from the city.
Dude, that's just it's like Black Hawk Down. These guys, y'all, I'm sorry, see ya. You're just out there on your own. And they're gonna be able to do anything. They're gonna be able to defend themselves until they can't, kind of deal. And it's an awful situation for these fellas to be in. It makes me kind of mad. I'll bring it up later on. I get kind of angry. I get angry. Erikson does this to me with his military stuff. I get angry at the stupidity.
Yeah, it's the ill-suited leadership that always causes us to get pissed off.
And rightfully so.
Same thing in Deadhouse Gates, man.
Yes. Oh yeah, that has. Oh my, good golly! I'm still angry about that. Dude, that
I don't
still
want to
rubs
think
me
about
raw.
it. I can't get into that mode right now. I can't open that Pandora's box at this point in time. One slight thing about the Black Hawk Down scenario, the distinction I see is in Black Hawk Down, the helicopters were shot down and they had to wait for support to arrive, but they were always planning on going to help them.
Yes.
In this case, they said, "No, you must stay."
You just stay.
And they knew they were going to get surrounded.
Yes.
And there's not going to be any way to get to them. And it was a choice.
Yeah, a choice from these politicians. Again, there we go. That's why it cuts and rubs so raw, is because it's very truthful. Part of his excellent writing style is bringing that real world politics into it. Not our real world, but their real world. I like that their real world politics seems to be completely divorced from our own. I appreciate that. This world has its own issues.
Yeah, the breadth of humanity is well represented, whether it's incompetence or mastery.
Yes.
He's got all of it in there.
And that's what I think, isn't that what makes the masterful stuff so good, is because of the hopeless incompetence from the leadership or from this or that or the other, and these people rise above, and he writes is that what makes his character so phenomenal, is they rise against just everything from bad luck to incompetence to just monumental obstacles. I think it's what makes it all so good.
Yeah, if you're anything like me in that regard, it's what are you up against? How are you going to rise to the occasion? And it's feeling like you get to go along for the ride. These people that are having these crazy acts of heroism, stepping in where nobody else would do it.
Yeah.
Beyond this minor drama, the assault against the city's walls had begun on all sides. The North attack proved a feint, poorly executed and so quickly recognized as insignificant. Messengers relayed to Aitkovian that a similar cursory engagement was underway at the west wall. The true assaults were delivered upon the south and east walls, concentrated at the gates. Aitkovian, positioned directly between them, was able to directly oversee the defense on both sides. He was visible to the enemy, and more than one missile had been fired in his direction, only a few coming close. This was the first day. Range and accuracy would improve in the days to come. Before long, he might have to yield his vantage point. In the meantime, he would let his presence mock the attackers. As the Beklites and Bedeklites rushed the walls, the latter bearing Desandi among them, Aitkovian gave the command for counterfire from the walls and block towers. The ensuing slaughter was horrific. The attackers had not bothered with turtles or other forms of cover, and so died in appalling droves. Again, signs that this kingdom has no long-term plans. It's sacrificing the soldiers with no regard for their lives, and there is no population to pull from to replace them.
Yes. Are you talking about this kingdom or the Panions kingdom?
The Panions in this case.
That's what I was thinking.
Because they're not protecting, they don't have any shields over their heads. When you're going up against the walls, you always want to cover yourself with something, because they're just going to be shooting arrows down into you, or oil, or whatever.
Is this the mob, though?
It is not the horde. These are the Scalandi skirmishers.
Okay.
Yeah, so
that's even worse.
The Scalandi are the leather armored. They're kind of lightly armored. I guess you'd consider them just your basic army unit that is the lowest grade. You know, the other ones are considered elites or shock troops or whatever, heavily armored.
You're kind of your foot soldier kind of character.
Yeah, the foot soldier, yeah.
So yeah, that is aggravating to see them not even protecting their own. I mean, I know these guys are our enemy, but I mean, dude, come on.
Yeah, I just look at it as a sign of the lack of long-term planning here. There is no end goal. It seems like it just wants to burn out.
Consume.
Yeah.
Consume and burn out, yeah. That's all it can do.
Yeah, it's like a wildfire.
Yeah, it is.
Yet such were their numbers that the gates were reached, battering rams deployed, and breaches effected. The Panions, however, after pushing through the passageways, found themselves in open concourses that became killing grounds as greyswords and Capenthal archers launched a withering crossfire from behind barricades blocking side streets, intersections, and alley mouths. The shield anvil's strategy of layered defense was proving murderously efficient. Subsequent counterattacks had been so effective as to permit sorties beyond the gates, a vicious pursuit of fleeing Panions. And, this day at least, none of the companies he'd sent out had gone too far. Discipline had held among the Capenthal, the Listari, and the Corolesian companies. The first day was over, and it belonged to Capustan's defenders. That is a contrast to the idea that the city would be taken in the first day.
Yes, quite the contrast. And it's almost like For a moment there, they seem to be doing so well that some of the people here can actually see that, well, wait a minute, maybe we do have a little bit better chance than we thought. I hope.
Yeah, I wonder about that because the tennis scouring haven't been sent out yet. And I don't even know how much of the military has been engaged yet of the people that are attacking, you know?
That's true.
But I see what you're saying. They thought that it would be over in hours, and they're holding out a little bit, at least.
Yeah. And apparently taking these people down very efficiently and not taking much loss.
Mm-hmm.
And welcome back to another episode of By Its Cover. I'm your host, Katie.
I'm Jake.
And you've started listening to By Its Cover. How did our intro go?
I know it's kind of funny, though, that you can't get it.
I can't get it. Oh, I know why. Okay. And welcome back to another episode of By Its Cover, a podcast where we pick out books by their cover,
Read them.
consume them,
Read them.
and then we talk about them on the show. I'm
Heck
your
yeah.
host, Katie.
Oh, we're starting over.
No.
I'm Jake.
Yep.
Itkovian stood on trembling legs, the coastal breeze building to dry the sweat from his face, sending cool tendrils through the half-visor's grill to brush his smoke-reddened eyes. As darkness closed around him, he listened to the rocks pounding the East Watch readout, and turned for the first time in hours to view the city. Entire blocks were aflame, the fires reaching into the night sky, lighting the underbelly of a turgid canopy of solid smoke. He thought, I knew what I would see. Why then does it shock me, drive the blood from my veins? Suddenly weak, he leaned against the merlin behind him, one hand pressed against the rough stone. A voice spoke from the shadows of the tower's doorway. You need rest, sir. Itkovian closed his eyes and said, Destriant, you speak the truth. Carnidus said, but there will be no rest. The other half of the attacking force is assembling. We can expect assaults through the night. Itkovian said, I know, sir. Carnidus said, Bruchalion. Itkovian interrupted, Aye, it must be done. Come forward, then. Carnidus murmured, Such efforts are increasingly difficult, as he strode up to stand before Itkovian. He laid a hand against Itkovian's chest, then said, The illness of the Warrens threatens me. Soon it will be all I can do to fend against it. The weariness drained from Itkovian, vigor returning to his limbs. He sighed, I thank you, sir. The Malazan equivalent of Red Bull. What would you call it? Feiner's
fuel. When you got to let your tusks hang out, go for Feiner's fuel. I don't know. You can go Feiner's crystal blue persuasion. Sorry, a little Breaking Bad there for you.
Oh, man. All right, so I played around a little bit with some ideas here, and I prompted Google Gemini, asking it for some thoughts. And it came up with a bunch of hilarious stuff here. For product name ideas, we have Feiner's Rage, because it's classic and it emphasizes ferocity.
Nice. The
Boar's Brew, which is simple, direct, and hints at the source. Feiner's Fury, that's kind of like yours.
Yeah.
Similar to Rage, but with a touch more chaotic energy.
Okay.
Tusker's Tonic, relates to the boar's tusks and suggests strength.
Okay.
And this is my favorite one right here. War Pig's Way. Playful and memorable with a touch of irreverence.
Yeah. Now the question I have to ask you, did you ask them to give you also the artwork for these?
I did not.
You need to work on that, dude.
Okay, I'll go back to the prompt and ask it.
I wouldn't be surprised if it generated something funny for that too.
Yeah, that'd be hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so there's more.
All right, I see that.
This is where it really this is where it gets really funny. Flavor profile ideas. Wildberry Blast, because it reflects the untamed nature of the boar in its forest habitat.
Okay, right on.
Crimson Crush evokes the blood and ferocity of battle.
I like that one.
I like that one too.
Yeah.
Iron and Oak
Ooh.
combines the strength of iron with the enduring power of oak. I don't know what that would taste like. Is that barbecue? What are we talking about here?
with a nice mesquite flavor. You know,
Thunderbolt suggests a sudden burst of energy and power.
Oh my good golly.
And then
go
Burning
ahead,
Ember implies fiery intensity and long-lasting effect.
I am, of course, reminded of a Monty Python skit from a record they do. And it's one where they have a priest doing a voiceover because they've got these great voice, and he's like, treadmill lager with the world's first great taste of fish. And he just can't stop saying a fish. It's not supposed to be in there. It's like, but he just kind of keeps. I'm so sorry, because I don't know why I keep saying a fish. It's like it just keeps slipping in there, and it's just like. But I'm suddenly thinking of fish. Burning ember. But with the playful, memorable, with a touch of irreverence, of fish. Okay, I'll move along, sir.
All right. So we have more visuals. We need to use imagery of boars, boar tusks, and fierce warriors.
Sure.
Depict scenes of intense battle and triumphant victories. Consider a dark, earthly color scheme with hints of crimson or gold.
So it's very Norwegian, Slavic, Swedish, like Eric the Viking kind of is who we're marketing this towards, your average barbarian.
I don't know.
I love it.
This is all in the context of the Malazan universe.
It works there too. These guys are decked out. I mean, those guys are the same kind of warriors. A bunch of barbarians. So same thing.
So this is where it starts getting real good. Slogans.
Oh, dude.
Unleash the fury of Feiner. Fuel your rage, conquer your foes.
Hey, there we go.
The taste of victory. Stronger than steel. Wilder than war.
Oh.
Embrace the boar within.
Oh, my word. That's great.
I mean, some of these
I
could be the
AI
gray
is
sword
amazing,
slogans, dude.
Could I use AI to build a career for myself as somebody who knew what was going on in an office?
I'm telling you, dude, who needs marketing people when you have this? This took 30 seconds to generate, and some of it is actually pretty good. I mean, some of it's trash, but I mean, because I was having trouble thinking of ideas of what words would I use.
Right.
I had an inappropriate one come to mind that my wife suggested I not use, and then she recommended ambrosia, and I said it was too feminine, and she said, well, it's the greatest... She said it's the nectar of the gods. It's not gendered. I said it's too feminine. It's not.
Now I have another guy's flashback of feminine. It's Mark Wahlberg.
Okay.
The sound of your piss hitting the urinal is feminine. It's distinctly feminine. Sorry, he tells Will Ferrell that. Oh my word, he's insulting Will Ferrell at the very beginning. And he's like, man, the sound of it hitting the urinal is even feminine. It's distinctly feminine.
Was that the one where they're the buddy cops?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Magnificent.
That's where he was Gator.
Yes. 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 This is where Dirty Mike came in too. That's where Dirty Mike and the boys were. That was Dirty Mike and the boys.
Right. All right, so it also gave me lore and backstory and unique selling points. I'm not going to go into those. They're kind of generic. Doesn't have enough Malazan context. But sure. I got a real kick out of some of this stuff.
Nice.
Carnidus said, the mortal sword has just been called to the thrall to give account for the first day's battle. And no, we were not fortunate enough to hear of the thrall's destruction beneath a few hundred balls of fire. It stands intact. However, given those that it now houses, we would no longer wish such a fiery end. Akovian pulled his gaze from the streets, studied Carnidus's red-lit face. He asked, your meaning, sir? Carnidus said, the Barghast, Hitan and Kafal, have taken up residence in the main hall. Akovian said, ah, I see. Carnidus said, before he left, Bruchalion asked me to inquire of your efforts to discover the means by which the bones of the founding spirits will be spared the coming conflagration. Akovian said, I have failed, sir, nor does it seem likely that I will have opportunity to renew my efforts in that direction. Carnidus said, that is understandable, sir. I will convey to the mortal sword your words, if not your obvious relief. Akovian said, thank you. Carnidus strode to look out upon the east killing field. He said, gods below, do the Gidraft still hold the redoubt? Akovian joined Carnidus and murmured, uncertain. At the very least, the bombardment has not ceased. There may be little but rubble there now. It's too dark to make out, but I believe I heard a wall collapse half a bell ago. Carnidus said, the legions are marshalling once more, Shield Anvil. Akovian said, I need more messengers, sir. My last troop. Carnidus said, I, exhausted. I shall take my leave and do as you ask, sir. Akovian listened to the man make his way down the ladder, but held his gaze on the enemy positions to the east and south. Hooded lanterns flashed here and there among what appeared to be troops arrayed in squares, the figures jostling and shifting behind wicker shields. Smaller companies of Scalandi skirmishers emerged, moving cautiously forward. Bootsteps behind the shield anvil announced the arrival of the messengers. Without turning, Akovian said, Inform the captains of the archers and trebuchets that the Panions are about to renew their assault. Soldiers to the walls and battlements. Gate companies assembled, full complement, including sappers. A score of fiery balls rose skyward from behind the massed ranks of the Panions. The missiles arced, their sizzling roar audible as they passed high over Atkovian's head. Explosions lit the city, shook the bronze-sheathed floorboards beneath his feet. Atkovian faced his cadre of messengers and said, "Go." Sieges at night always look so cool. The fire and explosions are much more spectacular.
Oh, yeah. Agreed. Yeah, the contrast is great. I like seeing this stuff on fire at night and seeing the fireballs flying through the air, Awesome.
And this, of course, is someone who's not experiencing the siege in the moment, but someone witnessing it on screen.
Absolutely. Not as one who is I'm not a fan of going to your local siege and seeing what's what,
Yeah, if you remember, there was a quote. If you can, dear friend, do not live through a siege.
Yeah.
That was the beginning of the chapter, wasn't it?
Yeah. It didn't say anything about not observing one.
Yeah. Carnidus rode his horse at a canter across Tural Concourse. The huge arch 50 paces to his left had just taken a hit on one corner of the pedestal, spraying broken masonry and burning pitch onto the cobbles and onto the rooftops of the scatter of tenements beside it. Flames billowed, and the destriant saw figures pouring from the building. Somewhere to the north, at the very edge of the temple district, another tenement block was engulfed in fire. He reached the far side of the concourse, not slackening his mount's pace as he rode up Shadow Street, the district's main avenue. Ahead loomed the dark stones of the Thrall, the ancient keep towering over the lower structures of the Daru tenements. 3 squads of Gidrath commanded the gate, fully armored and with weapons drawn. Recognizing Carnidus, they waved him through. He dismounted in the courtyard, leaving his horse to a stabler, then made his way to the great hall, where he knew he would find Bruchalion. As he strode down the main aisle towards the double doors, he saw that another man was ahead. Robed, hooded, he was without the usual escort provided strangers to the thrall, yet he approached the entrance with a graceful assurance. Carnidus wondered how he had managed to get past the Gidrath. Then his eyes widened as the stranger gestured with one hand and the huge doors swung open before him. Voices raised in argument drifted out from the great hall, quickly falling silent as the stranger entered. Carnidus increased his pace and arrived in time to catch the end of a wrath priest's expostulation. "This instant!" Carnidus slipped through the entrance in the stranger's wake. He saw Bruchalion standing near the center millstone, now turned to regard the newcomer. Hitan and Kefal were sitting on their rug a few paces to Bruchalion's right. The priests and priestesses of the masked council were one and all leaning forward in their seats, their masks conveying caricatures of extreme displeasure, with the exception of Wrath Hood, who was standing, the wooden skull visage of his mask arched with outrage. The stranger, hands clasped within the folds of his robe's sleeves, seemed unperturbed by the hostile welcome. From where Carnidus stood, he could not see the man's face, but he saw the hood shift as the stranger scanned the masked assembly. Wrath Hood asked, "Will you ignore my command?" visibly bridling his tone. The priest glared about, then said, "Where are our Gidrath? Why in the gods' names haven't they heard our summons?" In Daru, the stranger murmured, "Alas, they have for the moment heeded the call of their dreams. Thus we avoid any unnecessary interruptions." The man turned to Bruchalion, allowing Carnidus, who now stood at the mortal sword's side, to see his face for the first time. Round, strangely unlined, unmemorable barring the expression of calm equanimity. Carnidus thought, the merchant retrieved by Atkovian. His name, Keruli. The man's pale eyes fixed on Bruchalion. He said, "My apologies to the commander of the Grey Swords, but I fear I must make address to the masked council. If he would be so kind as to temporarily yield the floor?" Bruchalion tilted his head and said, "By all means, sir." Wrath Shadowthrone hissed, "We do not agree to this." The stranger's eyes hardened as he swung his attention on the priest. He said, "You, unfortunately, have no choice. I look upon you all and find the representation woefully inadequate." Carnidus choked back a laugh and recovered in time to meet Bruchalion's raised eyebrow with an expression of innocent inquiry. Rathburn said, "By the abyss, who are you to make such judgment?" Keruli said, "I need make no claim as to my true name, priestess, only to the title I now demand." Rathburn said, "Title?" Keruli said, "Wrath Kerul. I have come to take my place among the masked council, and to tell you this, there is one among you who will betray us all." Keruli's coming into the thrall and throwing bombs. I wonder if any of these other priests are as powerful as he is.
I doubt it.
Okay.
I seem to recall who Caruli is, and so no, I don't think he has any equals here.
If that's the case, he's handling this quite
Deftly?
diplomatically. He's handling it quite diplomatically.
Yeah, he's doing well.
Yeah. We go to Gruntle and Stani. She sat on the flat board bed, long hair in disarray, hanging down her face. Gruntle reached out and slowly combed the tresses back. Stani's sigh was ragged. She said, "This is stupid. Things happen. There's no rules to battle. I was an idiot trying to take on a seer domin with naught but a rapier." He'd batted it aside with a laugh. She looked up and said, "Don't stay with me, Gruntle. I can see what's there in your eyes. Go." She glanced around the room, then said, "I just need to get cleaned up. I don't want you here, not outside the door either. If you took that position, Gruntle, you'd never leave it. Go. You're the best fighter I have ever seen. Kill some Panions. Hood take me. Kill them all." Gruntle said, "Are you sure?" Her laugh was harsh. She said, "Don't even try." He grunted, began checking his armor straps and fittings, adjusted the padding beneath, dropped the visor on his helm, loosened the heavy cutlasses in their scabbards. Stani watched him in silence. Finally, he was ready. He said, "All right. Take your time, lass. There'll be plenty left whenever you're done here." Stani said, "Aye, there will." Gruntle faced the door. Stani said, "Do some damage." Gruntle nodded and said, "I will." Tell me the hairs on the back of your neck didn't stand up, and I'd call you a liar.
He did stand up. I love that. I've been waiting.
I get so hyped up.
Oh, yeah. Very much so.
I want to see what he's going to do. I want to see what he's capable of.
One thing I always remember is that the cover of the book, that's him.
Yep.
That's him and her, right? And that's what I'm assuming?
I have to go and look, but I think there's an issue with the color of the woman's hair, but I always assumed it was them.
Yeah, I know it's him, and I just love I love Gruntle. I just love that boy. And we haven't seen him much in this book.
Yeah, and what we have seen, he's a troubled individual.
Yes.
But when people wake up to their potential, I always like seeing that.
Yeah.
The Becklights and Scalandi reached the east wall in their thousands. In the face of withering arrow fire, ladders were raised. Figures swarmed upward, poured over the battlements. The east gate was taken yet again, the enemy surging down the passageway to spill out onto the square of New East Market. To the south, the city's main gate fell to a concerted barrage of catapult fire. A legion of Becklights swept into Jelarken Concourse. A well-aimed ball of burning pitch struck the Kappenthal West Barracks. The building rose in a conflagration that lit the entire city a lurid red. That thing must have been a fire trap. That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, see, it was covered in pitch also. When those things smack, it spatters a lot of that crud on everywhere, I imagine, really helping ignite the nearer stuff that it hits as well, I'm assuming.
I don't know why I always felt that the barracks would be like a stone structure, but I guess it was made out of wood.
Yeah, it had to be. It would have had to have been wood,
Yeah.
or a lot of this stuff. A lot of this stuff was probably stone walls and wood roof, and a lot of these kind of castle set. At least in my brain, castle settings are kind of like that because I think of our own world where stone walls, kind of wood, and heavy duty beams and stuff, but wood nonetheless.
Right. Shock troops of Erdoman and Seerdomen breached Northgate and entered the nearest Daru streets after destroying Nildar camp and slaying everyone within it. The enemy was within the city on every side. The battle, Ikovian concluded, was not going well. With each report that a messenger delivered, Ikovian issued commands in a soft, calm voice. 4th Wing to the 9th Barricade, between East Inside and Nerok Towers. Resupply the Kappenthal in the 2 towers. 7th Wing to West Inside Tower and Wall. I need a report on the status of Jabbar Tower. There were 500 Kappenthal in the West Barracks. Likely they've been routed. 5th and 3rd Main into the streets around Tular Concourse to rally the Kappenthal. 1st, 7th, and 6th Mains double time to North Temple District. Block and strike until Northgate is retaken. 4th, 2nd, and 8th Mains to New East Market once the East Gate is recovered. I want Wings 1, 3, and 5 to sortie. Their rally point is the East Watch redoubt. I want the siege engines assailing it neutralized. Then any Gidrath survivors retrieved. Have the Trimaster report to me. As I'm reading this, it sounds like they're trying to play a real-time strategy game like World of Warcraft. I'm sorry, like Warcraft 3 with voice commands.
I can almost hear an automated voice almost doing this, But what is impressive to me is so much that Gray Swords here are just so orderly that he's able to just call this out and expect it. And I'm assuming receive it from the people that, I want you to do this, you go do this, go do this, go do that, and they go do it. That's some amazing order, dude. I love that. I mean, I think this is why I have a hard time seeing these fellas as mercenaries in a weird way, because, a mercenary, I always think of someone's more self-centered, and this is not a group that's self-centered. They're a group, and they're driven by the contract, not just the money. It's a very intriguing concept, and I come to really like these guys, and I very much so like this. When I see them functioning like this, this is great, dude.
They're absolutely proficient at what they do.
Yes, they are.
Consummate professionals.
Yes, I admire them.
I was giving them a hard time about the way they talk.
Oh, yeah.
And they're all serious at the beginning.
Well, it pays off now. We see the payoff. I mean, we need to see it.
Akovian's an animal, man. For him to keep all that stuff straight in his head, I mean, he's like...
You know what he sounds like? I'm thinking, I know exactly who I'm thinking.
Top ranked.
He sounds like Thufir Hawat.
He's a mentat.
He's just he's reeling those things out, but going like super fast, blah, 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 blah. It's more, I can just see it more from that David Lynch version, but it's just like, for some reason, I can just see the eyes rolled up, just reeling out skeins of information, just verbally. That's what I'm reminded of.
Yes. Yeah.
Mentat mode.
They didn't do the mentat service
No.
in the new movies.
Not at all.
That's my one gripe.
Not at all.
I don't know if it was too much or what, but I feel like they really missed an opportunity there.
Yeah. Agreed.
I like the guy that they picked. Actually, I liked both the actors that they chose for the mentats.
Absolutely. I'm sorry. My favorite one is always the Piter de Vries from Dune, from 84's Dune. That's Brad Dourif. And he's magnificent. He's so magnificent as Piter de Vries. He's always Piter de Vries for me. But they never do these guys justice. The Sci-Fi Channel was the only one that did them justice, but that one always falls flat just because it's television. And I love it because I know the story, but I only love it because I know the story.
I didn't like how they purposely seemed to change the way names were pronounced for no apparent reason.
Was that in the new one, you mean? Or was it the Sci-Fi one?
Yeah, the Sci-Fi Channel one. The new one was fine. The new one was exactly what I expected.
What amazes me with the new Dune, for this part of this quick digression, but is the fact that he did a job there that made people like my wife, who would not like I tried to show her the miniseries and tried to get her into the deeper part of it. She's never going to like it, but she liked that because it's like he was able to take the visual aspects of the entire book and omit everything else and still do an amazing job. And that's kind of the impression I got.
He's a once-in-a-generation movie director.
Yes.
And uniquely suited to Dune because he has a history of desert scenes in his movies.
Yeah. And he's going to do number 3. You know that, right? He's going to do Children of Dune. No, Messiah, sorry.
Messiah.
Dune Messiah.
Yeah.
That's going to be the end of his trilogy.
Right. That's good.
Yeah.
The way the second one ended, you have to have a follow-up to that. There's no way you can do it without.
Absolutely. Because my father loved the new movies. I recommended the books. I don't know if he'll read the books, but I don't know. I don't think he'd like the other ones.
At least the first one. You have to read the first one. It's one of the historic...
Dude.
I've probably read it 6 times. It's so good. It's just an amazing book.
Easily 6 times, yeah.
All right, moving along. In between commands and the coming and going of messengers, Akovian watched the engagement at New East Market, what he could see of it in the glare of fires through seething clouds of smoke. The Scalandi were pushing hard to break the barricades preventing them from reaching the prince's palace. Boulders had been hammering the palace's outer walls incessantly, all to no effect. The thin, glistening stone walls did not so much as tremble. Burning pitch roared itself to extinction, yet achieved nothing more than black stains, marring the unknown stone surface. The palace would have to be taken the hard way, step by step, every room, every level, and the Panions were eager to begin the task. That is that strange structure that looks alien compared to all the other architecture in Kapistan, and they couldn't make any modifications to it. The stuff would fall off of it. It wouldn't stick to it.
Yeah.
I would like to know more.
It must be made of Teflon.
No. Is that 3M product? Or is that DuPont? That's DuPont, isn't it?
I'm not sure. It could be 3M for here for the 3 Malazan Brotherhood, the Malazan.
There you go. The Gray Sword Trimaster commanding the 1st, 3rd, and 5th wings arrived on the parapet. He was one of Akovian's oldest officers, lean and tall, gray-bearded to hide countless scars. What a cool title, Trimaster.
Yeah, unless there's a Quad Master around.
I was thinking that. The Pentamaster. You know, like you just keep going.
You're right. The Dodeca Master.
Oh, boy. I don't know if you're going to beat that one. I guess there's always one
I don't
more.
know. Unless it's the Google, the Google master.
It's like the elementary school kids where they just keep going and going and going. They eventually get to infinity or Google, and then you're just like, okay, well.
Can't beat that.
Yeah. Isn't there some way Aleph 1? Have you heard of that?
Is that the number past Google?
It's Aleph null.
Okay.
And theoretically, it's greater than infinity.
Okay. So it's always like the kid who's always going like, as not. He's always adding one more. He's just, I mean, because infinity's...
Aleph null represents the size of an infinite set, which is all natural numbers, which can be shown to be smaller than other infinite sets, meaning there are different sizes of infinity depending on the set you're considering.
Okay.
There are different Alephs. The kids were watching a video on this the other day explaining this, and my mind exploded.
Okay. Well, what's funny, I hear a lot of quantum mechanics or quantum physics fellows talking these numbers that, that are numbers that do get up into these larger numbers that I'm presuming that we have mathematics that go past that, don't we?
Apparently we do.
I mean, past Google, because Google's the one with the 100 zeros.
Google, definitely.
So, exactly.
We're definitely past Google. Yeah.
Because we're definitely past 100 zeros, because I've seen some things and heard, because there's some things that I know a couple of facts are about certain numbers, and it's still not even, and it's only like 17 zeros. It's like the numbers, the mathematics is astounding. These numbers are amazing.
Mm-hmm. The Trimaster said, "My assignment has been conveyed to me, Shield Anvil." Ikovian thought, "So why have I sent for you? I see the question in your eyes, sir. You do not require any stirring words to cleave you to what could be a suicidal mission." Ikovian said, "It will be unexpected." The Trimaster's eyes narrowed, then he nodded and said, "Aye, sir, it will. With all the breaches, the enemy's front lines have lost their cohesion. Chaos claims all this night. We shall destroy the siege engines as ordered. We shall retrieve the survivors in the redoubt." Ikovian thought, "Aye, old friend, I am the one who needs stirring words." He said, "Keep your eyes open, sir. I would know the positioning of the Panion forces to the rear, specifically the Teniscauri." The Trimaster said, "Understood, sir." I can't believe that they're actually going out to the redoubt to rescue these soldiers. That's insane.
Dude, totally insane, but I love these guys. And all of a sudden, because we're dooning it, I just got a Gurney Halleck vibe from this old boy. The gray-bearded guy with the scars covered
I get that later at the end of the chapter.
Okay.
I'll bring it up. Yeah.
Okay.
A messenger arrived, stumbling as he cleared the ladder. She gasped, "Shield Anvil." Ikovian said, "Your report, sir." The messenger said, "From the Trimaster of the 1st, 7th, and 6th Mains, sir." Ikovian thought, "Northgate." He looked to the north. Most of the Daru tenements there were burning. He said, "Proceed." The messenger said, "The Trimaster reports that he has encountered the shock troops of Erdoman and Siridoman. They're all dead, sir." Ikovian said, "Dead?" The young woman nodded, paused to wipe ash-smeared sweat from her brow. Her helm, Ikovian noted, was too large. She said, "A citizen rallied the remnants of the Kapenthal Guard, as well as other civilians and some caravan guards. Sir, they engaged the Erdoman and Siridoman in a succession of street battles, and drove them back. The Trimaster now controls Northgate, to which his company of sappers are effecting repairs." Ikovian asked, "In this impromptu militia and its commander?" The messenger said, "Only a few wounded were there to greet the Trimaster, sir. The militia has set off westward in pursuit of an Erdoman company that sought to storm Lektar House." Ikovian said, "Messenger, send the first wing to their aid. Upon delivering my command, take some rest, sir." The messenger said, "Yes, Shield Anvil." I wonder who this citizen that rallied the locals and caravan guards together could be. Quite a successful campaign thus far.
Wow. Well, I love that they're surprised. I mean, it's like, well, they got there and they were all taken care of. It's like, wait, what?
Some good news for a change? What is this?
Yeah, it's exactly. So that was awesome. I'm curious who that could be too. I'm hoping to meet this person soon.
Ikovian asked, "That is not the helmet you were issued with, is it, sir?" Abashed, she shook her head and said, "I lost it, Shield Anvil." Ikovian said, "Have the quartermaster find you one that fits." The messenger said, "Yes, sir." Ikovian said, "Go." The two veterans watched the young woman depart. The Trimaster murmured, "Careless, losing her helm." Ikovian said, "Indeed." The Trimaster said, "Clever, finding another one." Ikovian smiled. The Trimaster said, "I shall take my leave now, sir." Ikovian said, Feiner, go with you, Trimaster.
I like how they acknowledge this person. Even in the midst of all this, they take the time to acknowledge good work from a subordinate. I mean, maybe not to her face, but amongst themselves, that's really cool, dude.
I think it shows a lot about their culture as a unit.
Yeah.
And it shows how much they value the people that make up that unit.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, they really cherish everybody. She's a messenger. Basically, one of the lower rungs on the totem pole, but they're fighters and they're carrying messages at the same time. It's like, wow, they're impressed with her. I'm like, that's cool, dude. That's really cool.
You know what he needs up here? He needs a cooler filled with War Pig whey.
That's right.
He could be throwing those cans out every time these messengers come up.
There you go. I love it, dude. Come get your tusks.
Back in the thrall, Carnidus drew a long, quiet breath, the hairs on his neck rising at the sudden, heavy silence in the great hall. He thought, betrayal? His eyes were drawn to one priest in particular. Wrath Cruel's words were fuel to suspicions the Destriant already held, and the bias led him to mistrust his own conclusions. He held his tongue, but his gaze remained fixed on Wrath Feiner. The Moor mask was without expression, yet the man stood as if he had just taken a blow. Betrayal from Wrath Feiner? That actually surprises me a little bit.
It does. And does this have something to do with Feiner being pulled into the realm and Deadhouse Gates? Or set the stage for it when Boric does the hand into the lock tattoo thing and Feiner's ripped into this world? Or is this a separate issue altogether?
I think it's a separate issue altogether, simply related to this priest and his power-hungry nature, possibly.
Okay.
Yeah, because the whole Feiner situation in Deadhouse Gates, that was very specific to Hebrick and the actions they took at that moment in time. I don't think anything happening here contributed to that.
Okay. Well, I was thinking like maybe weakening him somehow, but they've been talking about this also because these the Gray Swords, because they're a bunch of Feiner followers. You know, that one guy's been wanting to just smack this boy down anyhow. This Wrath Feiner, he's been wanting to, because he says I'm the rightful representative on the council. Basically, he said this earlier. I forget when, but
yeah, it was a couple of chapters ago.
So I guess this has been setting this up more than we realize.
Yeah, but I never got the hint of betrayal. Why would he betray all the other priests? It just seemed weird to me. You know, like there's infighting with the Feiner group. I get it.
But is it betrayal, or is it just that they're just? I can't remember what it even is at the moment. So
maybe it's some dust up between Feiner and Shrake. Maybe it's related to that.
Oh,
and that's where it could be coming from. Possibly.
Okay.
Because remember, Wrath Drake was talking to.
Well, I guess hopefully we'll see. Hopefully it'll be spelled out in a way that I can see real easy.
We'll find it. We will search each word.
We will find it, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
Wrath Shadowthrone hissed, "The age of Cruel is long past." Wrath Cruel said, "He has returned, a fact that should give every one of you a certain measure of relief. It is Cruel's blood, after all, that has been poisoned. The battle now begun shall spare no one, including the gods whom you serve. If you doubt my words, take your inner journeys, hear the truth from your gods. Aye, the words might well be reluctant, indeed resentful, but they will be spoken nonetheless." Wrath Queen of Dreams said, "Your suggestion cannot be achieved in haste." Wrath Cruel slightly bowed and said, "I am amenable to reconvening. Be warned, however, we've little time." Wrath Queen of Dreams said, "You spoke of betrayal." Wrath Cruel said, "Aye, Wrath Queen of Dreams, I did." Wrath Queen of Dreams said, "You wound us with divisiveness." Wrath Cruel cocked his head and said, "Those who know your own conscience to be clear, brothers and sisters, will thereby be united. The one who cannot make that claim will likely be dealt with by his god." Wrath Queen of Dreams asked, "His?" Wrath Cruel shrugged. Bruchalion cleared his throat in the subsequent silence. He said, "With the leave of the mass council, I shall now depart. My shield anvil has need of me." Wrath Hood said, "Of course. Indeed, from the sounds beyond the thrall, it would appear that the walls are breached and the enemy is within." Carnidus thought, and Hood stalks Capustan's streets. Ambivalence, sufficient to cool your tone. Bruchalion smiled and said, "It was our expectation from the very beginning, Wrath Hood, that the walls and gates would be taken, periodically." He swung to Carnidus and said, "Join me, please. I require the latest information." Carnidus nodded. Hitan suddenly rose, eyes flashing as she glared at Wrath Cruel. She said, "Sleeping man, is your god's offer true? Will he in truth aid us?" Wrath Cruel said, "He will. Which of you volunteers?" Hitan, eyes wide, jerked her head towards her brother. Wrath Cruel smiled. Wrath Shadowthrone seemed to spit out his words as he said, "What now? What now? What now?" This guy's a maniac.
Yeah.
Carnidus turned to study Kafal, was shocked to see the man still seated cross-legged, with his head bowed in slumber. In a low voice, Wrathcruel said, "To all here, awaken him not, if you value your lives." We go to Gruntle. An even dozen Capinthal remained of the 60-odd followers Gruntle had led westward from Northgate, and only one Lestari guardsman, a sergeant who had stepped into the role of second-in-command without a word. Lestari House was one of the few well-fortified private residences in Kapustan, the home of Kalin Darl, a merchant family with links to the council in Darujistan, as well as the now-fallen noble house of the same name in Lestari itself. The solid stone structure abutted the north wall, and its flat roof had become a strong point and rallying position for the wall's defenders. I assume this is an uncle or aunt or cousin of Crocus's first love, Chalice.
Yes, that would be my assumption. I agree. Usually, that's one thing I love. I love Erikson always has the family names. They're the family names. They're, especially when there's a tie between Darujistan and Kapistan. They're definitely going to be related.
Yeah. At street level, the grand entrance consisted of a thick bronze door set in a stone frame, the hinges recessed. A broad pediment overhung the entrance, held up by twin marble columns. Its ceiling crowded with the carved heads of demons, their mouths open, and now dripping with the last of the boiling water that had gushed down on the screaming Scalandi who had been hammering on the door. Gruntle and his troop, still reeling from a savage clash with 15 Erdomen that had seen most of the militia chopped to pieces, before Gruntle had personally cut down the last two Panions, had come upon the Scalandi mob from behind. The engagement was swift and brutal. Only the Lestari sergeant revealed any mercy when he slit the throats of those Scalandi who had been badly scalded by the boiling water. The cessation of their shrieks brought sudden silence to the scene. Gruntle crouched beside a body and used its tunic to clean the blades of his cutlasses. The muscles of his arms and shoulders were leaden, trembling. The night's breeze had strengthened, smelling of salt, sweeping the smoke inland. Enough fire still raged on all sides to drive back the darkness. The sergeant said, "Look at that, will you?" Gruntle glanced over at the Lestari sergeant, then followed the man's gaze. The thrall loomed to the southeast, only a few streets away. The entire keep was faintly glowing. The sergeant muttered, "What do you figure?" Gruntle thought sorcery of some kind. I do wonder what's going on there. Something to do with Karuli and Kafal, right?
I'm pretty sure that's what it is.
Mm-hmm. The sergeant said, "I'd guess that's ritual magic. Probably protective. Hood knows we could do with some of that ourselves. We're cut to pieces, sir. I ain't got much left, and as for the rest," eyeing the dozen battered, bleeding Capinthal crouched or kneeling, or leaning against the house's walls, he shook his head, then said, "They're done for." Sounds of fighting neared from the southwest. The scraping of armor from the roof of Lestari House drew Gruntle's attention. A half-dozen Capinthal regulars were looking down on them. One shouted, "Nicely done, whoever you all are." The sergeant asked, "What can you see up there?" The soldier said, "We've retaken the north gate. Gray swords, damn near 1,000 of them. The Panions are reeling." The sergeant muttered, "Gray swords. We was the one who retook that gate." Gruntle growled, "But we're not holding it, are we?" He faced his meager troop and said, "Look alive, you spineless Capins. We ain't finished." Dull, disbelieving eyes fixed on him. Gruntle said, "Sounds like the west gate's down. Sounds like our defenses are backpedaling, meaning they've lost their officers, or their officers ain't worth shit. Sergeant, you're now lieutenant. The rest of you, you're sergeants. We've got some scared soldiers to rally. Let's move. Double time. Don't want you all stiffening up." Glaring at them, Gruntle rolled his shoulders, clashed his cutlasses. He said, "Follow me." He jogged down the street towards Westgate. After a moment, the others fell in step. So, you mentioned Gurney Halleck earlier.
Yeah.
This scene right here is him running across the airfield or the spaceport in Dune, leading the charge on the night the Atreides were being betrayed.
Dude, absolutely. I agree. Totally fitting. Absolutely agreed.
And his point is really salient. If you stop after you've been really pushing yourself physically, you're going to seize up. But if you keep going, you can keep going.
Yeah.
You don't really have a choice. You have to keep going.
Yeah. I agree.
I'm curious, where is this competency coming from with Gruntle? He simply takes the reins and leads like it's nothing.
Early in the book, when we're first introduced to Gruntle, the impression given of him is very professional. you know, he's got his guys that he's with, and they're just kind of just bored because they're sitting around, but, you know, they're just watching the problem in the stream clear up. But when he's here in town, I don't know if it's because we lost Harlow on the way or something like that, or that they're stuck in here during the siege when he's wanting to get out. He's been kind of a mean drunk. So I've been waiting for. He may be just waiting for the next encounter, even though he acts like he's not. You know, like he's a fighter. He's born to fight. He doesn't like it, so maybe that's why he drinks, to drown that out. But then when the next encounter happens, he's there and he's ready to go.
Okay. Maybe there's part of him that he has to drink to block it out, but then when it's time, it's time.
It's time. It's on. Yeah, might as well.
All right, we're going to stop there this week, and we will finish out the chapter next week.
Nice.
For standout moments, Feiner's energy drink ability.
Vader's balls gives you balls.
Karuli claiming the title of Wrath Cruel and claiming there was a traitor in the midst of the priests within the thrall.
This is very intriguing. I'm very interested in seeing who this, what the betrayal is, and I'm hoping that we'll get this spelled out for us as we get through this rest of this chapter.
Gruntle finally entering the fray. I love that scene where he's taking his time, getting all suited up, and then he's ready to go.
Yes. Dude, I love it. Geared up, rolling the shoulders, getting loosened up, doing his little pregame stretch, you know. I love it, dude. I love it.
The entire thrall lighting up with sorcery. That'd be something to see.
That would be something to see. Again, on the big screen, in the dark, with all the flying fireballs and everything else. Man, that'd be amazing to see, dude.
And then finally, Gruntle's exploits wrangling the surviving forces within Kapustan.
Wow. I love that. I love how he managed to wrangle these guys up. And I'm not sure how he's losing a bunch of them, but they're sure doing a good job. And he's sure inspiring these fellows to stay with him. That's really cool, dude.
Mm-hmm. I don't think he's giving him a choice.
He may not be.
What's interesting is it's not like he'd actively do anything about it, but they don't see a better alternative to surviving than following him right now. You know?
There's not.
There's nowhere to run.
Nowhere to run. You're going to be eaten, or you can kill somebody. You know, it's like, let's see if we can survive.
Yeah. All right. Great job tonight, Billy.
Hey, man. Really good job, dude.
You got any final thoughts before we drop off here?
Just a great episode. I love this. I love seeing Gruntle finally get to work. Love seeing the siege get underway. Really looking forward to finishing up this chapter next week, dude. Such a good chapter. Such a good chapter.
Yeah. It's very good. There's a lot of build up, and now that it's here, I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, I love it. Sorry for everyone who's involved in suffering in this siege, but hey, your suffering is my entertainment. I appreciate that, Mr. Erikson.
Oh. Oh my God, Billy. On that note, thanks everybody. We'll see you next week.
See y'all next week.
We thank you all for joining us today.
Again, we really like to thank you for taking the time to be with us, and we've had a really great time talking about the topic today.
If you would like to support our show, you can find us at horsefrogproductions.com, where you can find our Patreon link. Depending on the platform you're listening from, it may also be in the episode description.
And if you'd like to contact us through email, it's at contact@horsefrogproductions.com.